Hey you guys, it's Josh
and Carolyn
with Homesteading Family, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pantry Chat, episode 21, I think.
I think it's a 21.
Food for thought. And today we are going to be covering fall planting. 20 varieties or 20 species that you can plant in your garden. Probably, depends on your frost-free zone right now. Point is, there is a lot you can plant in the fall for a fall harvest and even a winter harvest.
Yeah, and in some zones you can plant them and overwinter them and be eating all year round, even the winter, even places where you get cold and you can't grow the main season stuff, you can still be growing and eating right out of your garden fresh food year round in a lot of places.
Yeah, it's going to be different for everybody, so we're going to try to strike a middle ground.
Right.
But it's going to give you guys some ideas. If you are not planting right now and getting things in the ground for a fall harvest, you're missing out on a lot of opportunity and a lot of good food coming into your kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're gonna cover that. But in the meantime, or before we get to that, what's going on?
What's
what's up with you?
We've been doing a lot of harvesting and preserving at our house. Look at this. I just walked through the garden and just grabbed a few, I don't know if the sun's on it too bright, a couple of raspberries. We've got these things coming in by the gallon. You better, I'll take a few.
Two? Okay.
We've got them coming in by the gallon right now. Buckets and buckets coming in. So
what are you doing with them mostly? What's going to happen with the raspberries?
Okay, so honestly, they're most of them are destined to become raspberry jam because that's kind of our mainstay jam through the year.
It's my favorite through the winter.
It's my favorite. The kids love it. Raspberry zinger, yeah. We make it nice and citrusy and lemony, and just really good. The kids love it on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We love it with toast, waffles, all sorts of stuff. So, but I've been so busy, I haven't had the time to actually make the jam right now. So I'm measuring them out and I'm getting them in the freezer for the moment. In about, I think, 2 weeks, I am gonna be jamming.
You be jamming.
I'd be jamming. So besides that, I'm doing a lot of fermenting
and
every year.
Question for you. Some people may wonder, because it's a challenge sometimes when so many things come full, come ready for harvest at the same time. And of course, we're always trying to strategize and stagger out what ripens. But sometimes a lot just hits you. You can't get it all done. And of course, you've been working on your canning class. There's a lot going on. So by freezing them, I think that's a great way to temporarily hold them so they don't go bad. Is that going to affect the jam much?
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't at all, especially with these berries. They freeze really well, especially for that short term. Yeah. So that's not a problem. But the one real trick is make sure you measure them out and label how much you have measured before you freeze them, and make sure they're clean before you freeze them. Don't freeze them with stems or other things you have to deal with, because that turns into a disaster. So make sure you get them clean, measured, and labeled, so that way when you go to pull them out, you've got 4 cups of raspberries in the bag.
And of course, that I'm going to get into the freezer and I'm going to hide a few bags so that there are some frozen raspberries for smoothies in the winter time.
Yes, some of those are going to be stuck, left in there for
Gotta have a little.
And I do flash freeze them so that they're scoopable. By flash freezing, you put them out on like a cookie sheet and freeze them that way, and then put them into a bag. That way they're individually
not frozen all together.
They're not a big chunk.
Right.
So you can scoop out a few to use. So we're doing that. And then of course, the kids have been picking the wild huckleberries here. If you've never had a wild huckleberry, it's like a blueberry with a flavor explosion.
Blows blueberries away.
It's really hard to like blueberries after you've gotten used to huckleberries. I gotta say, they seem kind of bland, but we're bringing in buckets of those and getting those in. And then I've been fermenting a lot, and every year
I'm waiting for those carrots. I'm waiting for you to say they're ready.
I ferment more and more and practice more preservation by fermenting, and I am amazed sometimes at how much you can ferment and how quick it is, how easy it is to ferment something, but how long it lasts in a great state. And I love it that it's actually getting healthier when it's sitting in preservation mode in a ferment.
You're enhancing flavor and nutrition.
Right.
By fermenting as opposed to canning. And canning has its place, obviously.
It has a wonderful place.
But fermenting also has a wonderful place.
Yeah.
And is how people preserved a lot of foods
For a long time.
before canning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we think of canning as the traditional method, but most of human history has not had canning even.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's the carrots. If you guys haven't done fermented carrots, we should try to put a link up for the video. She's got a video.
I think
on
I have
fermenting
3
carrots.
videos up on fermenting
Oh
carrots
man,
in different ways.
they are absolutely
they're so
amazing.
Good.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and definitely tomatoes. We don't have those in yet, but if you have not fermented tomatoes yet as a preservation method, I don't just mean ferment them for 3 days on your counter and then eat them like so many people are doing right now for health things. That's great for health, but I'm talking about preserving these things for 6 months plus in a pantry, in a hopefully cool space, but even a household space, as a preservation method in fermenting.
Oh,
This information's been about lost. It's really hard to find how to do that, but it's not hard. Watch the videos.
You want to talk about summertime in January?
Oh yeah.
Those fermented
tomatoes coming out,
oh,
they taste
my
so good.
Goodness. All right.
Yeah. Okay, what have you been doing?
I'm almost getting excited about winter. I feel very scattered. Regular homestead projects and always lots to do in the garden. We just did a major harvest of carrots and beets, and now we're getting ready to plant a bunch of fall crops ourselves. And August is the weeds start to come on, and we've got a good strategy that we keep them minimized, but August always seems to be the challenge where you start to teeter on whether they're going to get out of control or not. So doing that, and I've been spending a lot of time in the computer, starting to take over the technical side of the canning class. And getting that ready for release. So doing a lot there.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've been enjoying these hotter afternoons in the river with you and the kids.
We have. We've been going down to the river every afternoon and jumping in. We have a swimming hole right here, and we have been enjoying using it.
Yep, that's been very cool. So that's about it.
Yeah, good.
Cool. All right, well, let's get on to the question of the day from last week's Pantry Chat. Rose Felton. Thanks, Rose, for this question. I can understand not having dirt on your greens, but what about bringing bugs in the house with the greens? Or is that just extra protein? Love it. Good question.
That's a great question. What Rose is, if you did not see the last Pantry Chat, what Rose is referring to is us talking about the method that we use to grow greens in a way that they don't need to be washed when they come into the house because they stay clean from dirt.
And these are primarily our fresh eating greens. There's a few cooking greens in there, but not your chards
salad,
and stuff,
raw
but
salad
a lot of your
greens.
raw salad greens, right?
And what I have to say is, don't mess with my organic protein.
That's right. Rather have a few bugs than an herbicide.
Yes,
any day.
Absolutely.
And actually, it's not much of a problem.
We really don't have a problem with that very much.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few in there, but it's really not much of a problem. And I'm sure it's different for different folks in different areas, but they're not in there a long time. They don't get too wet or damp or mushy. You certainly wouldn't want to overwater them. Then you're going to encourage slugs and fungus and different things. But it just hasn't been a problem in the years that we've done that. And as we've really dialed in that strategy, it just isn't much of a problem. But here and there.
Not that we haven't had pest problems on other crops.
Oh, no, there's always...
But the greens don't seem to invite that very much. And I think, when you get your soil dialed in, your soil really healthy, your greens are just quick growing, they're robust. And when you have a plant that's really healthy like that, they don't invite pests.
Right. But you're right. You bring out a good point that pest damage to a certain degree is part of organic gardening and farming. We would rather have the pests. We would rather have some vegetation that isn't as pretty as your shiny, waxed, store-bought fruit or vegetables. And that is just part of a healthy ecological system that some of that is there. We obviously don't want our crops ruined, and so we have to manage that, but it comes with the territory. And so that's something that we learn to accept. We wipe away. Sometimes a lettuce or a chard or a certain vegetable isn't as pretty as it could be, but that's not priority.
If you feel like you really have an infestation of something on your lettuce or your greens when it comes into the kitchen, I've found the best way to handle that is a quick soak in a salt water if you're going to wash it. You know, if you feel like, gee, I just can't eat this without washing it because you're uncomfortable with that, then a quick soak in a salt water and then a quick rinse in a fresh water removes the dirt and anything else that's in there with it.
I guess for us, what is that? Maybe cabbages is the most prone because sometimes things, you know, whitefly, certain things tend to get down in the leaves, so maybe that's where we would have to do that.
So,
but,
yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, but most of it's just not that much of a problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll take the organic protein.
Yeah, I don't like slugs. If I see slugs, I kind of want to wash those.
Yeah, and those are a real problem for some
slimy.
people. We don't, in our environment here, have a lot of problem with that.
Yeah.
We actually get a fair amount of questions, and we're blessed in that.
Yeah.
But geese and ducks like slugs.
They really do,
So
especially the ducks.
Yeah, as your garden matures a little bit, if you have geese and ducks that you can bring through.
They answered you. Did you
They
hear
did,
the geese?
yeah. They're right. Yeah, they are.
Caught
They're
their
right
mention.
here.
They're hanging out right there. So.
Okay.
All right, ready to move on?
Yeah, let's move on to the main topic, which is fall planting. And we gotta say, if you're gardening, if you're going beyond hobby gardening, and you're trying to, if you're homesteading, if you're trying to provide food for yourself, you want to move past just the idea of planting once a year, once a season.
Yes.
You want to learn how to plant all season long, well before the last frost ever starts, and as long before your first frost in the fall hits. And you want to extend that season.
Right.
And there is a lot that you can do. We're in the beginning of August, and for a lot of you, unless you're way north, I've got right here 20. We came up with 20 species.
That we're going to plant
Varieties
now.
that we can plant. Well, not that we're necessarily going to all plant right now, but that could be planted right now.
Okay.
Some of you, it's going to be a little less. Some of you, it's going to be a little more, depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
But that's a lot. That's a major harvest yet to come, and we're in the beginning of August.
Right.
You know, thinking about harvesting corn and zucchini and tomatoes and winter squash in the next couple months.
Yeah. Hopefully tomatoes and cucumbers.
but there's a lot to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really important, especially as you think about the workings of a homestead year, because preserving food is a lot of work. There's just no way around it. It is a lot of work, short of maybe your winter squashes and things that are self-preserving in common storage. And there's a lot of strategies for balancing out that work, for, you know, making it more efficient. But the longer you can eat fresh out of your garden, the less you have to preserve. It's just another preservation pantry. Last time we used the term
living pantry?
The living pantry.
Yeah,
and that's really what the garden is, and it needs to be figured into your preserving year, that something sitting out in the garden waiting to be preserved or waiting to be harvested is sitting there like on a pantry shelf waiting for you.
Yep.
And that should really be one of the first preservation methods you go to, is extending your harvest, because it's going to be the most efficient and one of the healthiest, because, you know, you've got fresh vegetables you're bringing in. So I think this is a really important element that you're bringing out of, you know, plant things now and get it.
Yeah.
So you can harvest it longer through the season.
So one strategy, well, the strategy we employ for planting is there's 3 general seasons, right, of planting. There is spring planting, summer planting, fall planting. And then through that, we want to be getting seeds in the ground at least once a week.
Yeah.
Throughout all of that, for that continual fresh eating. And that minimizes, while we do need to preserve and put food up, that minimizes that need and allows us to just harvest as we go along.
Let's put a few qualifiers on here. We are in the far north of Idaho, if you haven't been following along with us for a while, and our ground not only freezes, but will be under several feet of snow through a chunk of the winter. So in some places of the country, you'll be able to plant 4 seasons.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In some places, maybe you're having a real tight 2 seasons if you're much colder than we are. But, you know, for us right here, just so you know what we're referencing, that's what our garden year looks like.
But a lot of the northern hemisphere temperate climate is going to have a balance somewhere in between.
Right.
And so one of the things, or the key things that you need to know to be able to decide what to plant and when, is a garden planner.
You
need
to have
some
a
sort of
planner.
garden planner.
Okay.
You guys have, a lot of you have seen me talk about these. I like Clyde's garden planner.
Can we put a link to that for them in the description here?
Yeah, you bet. And I like the sliding scale it has, but what it does, and the key function that you need to know is what your average last frost date is.
Okay.
Or if it's springtime. I'm sorry, springtime average last
frost
date. Right now, we need to know our average first frost date. When are we going to get that first frost?
Yeah.
And so a planner like this can take that and you can adjust it to your specific area, knowing your microclimate, what's going on in your area. And from there, you can start to make a decision on what you can get in the ground when.
Okay.
Right?
Great. So how do you find out your average first frost date? If you don't know, say you're a new gardener, you're in a new location maybe,
right.
How do you find that out?
So average indicates, right, an accumulation over many years.
Right.
So neighbors is the best way.
Okay.
Depends on where you're at. Some areas it's going to be the same for a large region. For us, we have a lot of little microclimates and pockets, and it can vary by up to a month.
Yeah.
Here in our area.
Just within a mile or two.
Right. So neighbors is your best resource.
Yeah.
And get out and talk to your neighbors and find out what's going on. And by neighbors, I mean not just your broad community, but people that are living closest to you.
Yeah.
And if you're in the mountains, it varies a lot. So,
Yeah.
so you've got to find somebody that's similar. And then also keep records over time for your own site so that you can start to develop what that really looks like.
Right. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we are figuring this. We are talking about a average first frost that is late October, second half of October.
Okay.
Is how we're basing this list.
Okay.
I think that's pretty average.
Right.
We hit that a little earlier. I know there's a lot of you out there that are probably going to have a little more room than that, and awesome.
I'm going to throw in a little tip here. In our area, we'll often get 1 or 2 really early frosts. And if you can get through those early frosts by either protecting the plants or what I'll tell you about right here in just a second, you can get up to another month on the other side of good summer growing
We sure
season.
can here,
We
yeah.
can here. And so you may be like that, where you could really extend your time if you could just make it through a couple frosts. Josh has a great video out on what to do if your garden frosts or freezes, how to fix that.
I'm going to say even freezes, yeah.
We got through a freeze.
We got a
this
freeze,
year
and I
with this
didn't
method.
that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, but definitely it'll get you through a frost. So check out the video of Josh's on a quick solve method if you get a frost.
Yep, and so for us, and we're going to have to see this site.
Yeah.
We haven't been through
It's
that
a
on
new
this
homestead.
site here,
Yep.
so we'll see if it works like our other site did,
Yep.
where we traditionally got a first frost in mid-September, but by handling that well, we didn't really need to count that as a first frost,
Yeah.
and so we'd get basically about another month. So
No, we could
so
keep
call
growing
it
our tomatoes and our
mid-October.
cucumbers
Yeah.
right past that.
Yep,
So, yeah.
absolutely.
Good.
Good. So the list we're going to give you here and the varieties we're going to talk about is based on late October.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
And so it's going to vary for some of you. You got to understand that. You got to do your own reading. But this is a list that hopefully will inspire you, get you thinking, and about what you might be able to do to get some more in the ground and extend the season.
Okay, and in case you're watching this late, right now we are at the beginning of August. So in case you're viewing this video a month or 2 from now, you have a reference point. Right now we're talking in reference to the beginning of August.
Right, and so for most of us in the Northern Hemisphere, most of this has got to get in the ground in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Some of us have already lost the window, and some of these things, your window will already be gone, but you really in August here, we've got to start getting the last of our plants.
Get it done.
Yeah, maybe the lettuces and stuff. And this is also not accounting for a greenhouse.
Yes.
There's other strategies. This is mostly dealing with out in the garden. Maybe you can employ a few strategies like some row covers. You want to talk about row covers, you want to talk about a greenhouse, and then row covers inside a greenhouse.
Yeah, that gets you a long ways.
Right. We're not really covering that. That's going to extend your season even more. Now that we have a greenhouse, we're going to start strategizing, playing with that, and looking at how we can have harvestable veggies in late December, even when we've got a foot or 2 of snow on the ground.
That's exciting.
That's going to take some practice and work to develop, but that's possible as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's dive in here. How about root crops? We'll start with some root crops here.
This week we're going to be planting beets and
carrots. Yep, we could do a few more radishes.
Radishes.
We don't like turnips very much.
We don't like turnips, but you can put them in if you do like them.
Yeah.
Rutabagas, those can go in. Radishes, we're excited to be trying some new fruit-flavored varieties of radishes.
Right.
I like trying new things.
She keeps it interesting. Yeah.
So anyways, we'll be trying those out.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing, but you could be doing carrots, beets, radishes, turnips, rutabaga. The one thing you're probably not going to get in right now is parsnips. And we love parsnips, but they're slower growing. Yeah, and that's going to...
They need to be started back in the spring to be harvested after the first frost.
Yeah. So those are your root crops, and that's really exciting.
That's a lot.
You can do a lot that you can get out there and plant right now. And of course, your beets, plant them densely, and you can harvest some leafy greens along the way.
Right.
To add in with your chard and other things.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got peas and beans, bush beans particularly.
Yeah, those can still go in.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, peas and bush beans can still go in.
Well, the peas will be real happy through a light frost. They'll be just fine with that. The beans, you have time to grow them now until the frost.
Right.
They're not going to make it through a frost naturally. So,
right, but you can, those bush beans that are going to grow smaller and not growing up so tall.
They go fast.
Now, we'll get on a schedule for peas, but we've had a major pea harvest and we're not quite set up for that.
For the fall.
Rotation for ourselves this fall.
Yeah.
But we could totally do that if we were ready for it right now. We've just got to continue to develop the garden and the rotation structure.
So, not so much us. We don't tend to grow bush beans, but our kids love the bush beans and they have a favorite variety. Do you remember? The dragon tongue beans. Their favorite variety, and I don't think a year goes by that the kids don't grow dragon tongue.
Do they have some in their garden this year?
They do, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I had to order them seeds specifically.
Yeah. We got a lot of kids. Maybe we should get that into the main crop.
We should.
Yeah. Okay, so peas and bush beans. That's another one. A lot of good harvest right there if you get them in the ground right now. A few brassicas, cauliflower.
Yeah, you can do a quick cauliflower.
Quick cauliflower, a broccoli, but it would need to be a sprouting or an overwintering. I don't know if a lot of people know about sprouting broccoli. Those have worked really well for us. You want to talk about that?
We have really enjoyed the sprouting broccoli. That is a broccoli where you're not going to get so much that main
large
head,
head.
One big head, but you're going to get a lot of side sprouts. And a lot of times, even here, those will go until the ground is just completely frozen solid.
That would be, our greenhouse isn't large enough for taking up space with those, but with a larger greenhouse, that would be a great fall into winter strategy.
And they will come back early in the spring, even if they've died back for the winter, they will come back and start sprouting really fast as soon as it warms up at all.
Yeah.
So that's why they call them the overwintering, is they kind of come back on early spring, late winter.
Yep.
And so that's a really good one to put in right now.
Cool. Cabbages, some cabbages, not a
lot.
Especially
like the Chinese cabbages.
Yeah.
Those are really good, and I love those things for stir fries. Those are my favorite.
Really, really good.
They're really good. Yeah.
You can tell we like stir fries a lot. They're very, very handy.
They're very handy when you're eating out of the garden.
I just put up a post today on Facebook for our homestead stir fry.
Okay.
with a lot of the dragon stir fry mix, leafy greens, mustards, bok choys, kales, and fresh eggs.
Oh yeah.
You know, hard boiled eggs and bacon.
Yeah.
You know, homestead stir fry.
This is,
But that's a great way.
That's one of them. One of the varieties, and that's the exciting thing about the stir fries is you can use whatever's in the garden.
Well, and they work great for our family because you can just take a bunch of whatever you've got and mix it up, cook it up in the cast iron pot, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. We get into a lot of other leafy, some other cooking greens, chards.
Yeah.
You got to get the chard in now.
Yeah.
Kales.
The better at this point.
Yeah, kales, spinach.
Oh yeah, spinach can go for a while. You can be putting that in for quite some time.
And I'm starting to add now more spinach into our weekly rotation of leafy greens, our succession beds. Yeah. So chard, kale, spinaches, mustards.
Oh, mustards.
If you guys haven't grown mustards for leafy greens, that is a great season extender. It grows
really
fast. It comes up early. Can take a little bit of the cold. And so we've always got mustard going within that succession
One
bed.
of our favorite varieties is the green wave mustard. It is a nice upright variety that makes a good cuddle green. And so
it's a great stir fry with a little bit of lard or bacon bits in it.
Yeah.
Stir fry, and then you can throw in onions and all kinds of stuff, but
Right.
even just mustard and a little bit of lard and bacon bits is just a wonderful. That's really good. It's as good to me. It's as good as spinach. And
it is. It's very
Yeah.
good. It's a little hot raw. It's a little spicy. Actually, it can be really spicy raw, but as soon as you cook it, it gets really mild. And
yeah,
good.
yep. And then you've got tons of lettuce, all kinds of
Oh, yeah.
lettuce, you know. And you can be planting lettuces now, and find your shorter seasons. And again, if you remember, and what we talked about last week, we're not trying to get lettuce to full heads.
Right.
We're growing them densely and harvesting as microgreens, baby lettuce, maybe a little taller. We want upright varieties, and if you grow with that strategy, the season's a lot shorter. You can be harvesting within 21 days.
Yeah.
And some of it goes up to 6 weeks, but that's a great way to keep the fresh eating. I love all the cooked greens, but I want something raw and fresh throughout as much of the season as we can get.
Absolutely.
And growing lettuces this way really does that. You can then take it, you can do some row covers or take it into the greenhouse, and you can keep those going.
Yeah. Yeah.
A long way.
We like those
Great.
salads.
And so there's a lot of lettuce. You got to figure out what works for you.
Along with that, you've got things like your arugula and other things and sorrels. Sorrel you can put in pretty much any time of the year that you can put seeds into the ground.
Yep.
That's a really good one. Nice lemony spinach, pretty much.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And sorrel is a perennial
Yes.
for
it's a
most of
perennial.
us. Yep.
Yep.
And that's a whole nother subject we got to talk about sometime. We got to get into your garden and perennial greens that you don't have to reseed every year, but that are great for harvesting and cooking. Most of those are cooking greens.
Yeah. Yep.
But that's great. Arugula, you said, bok choy, and then that kind of goes into mesclun mixes. And well, hi there. We have a visitor today.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Hi.
Come here. You want to come say hi?
Hi.
Say hi.
Hi.
And so your mesclun mixes, and that's something I'm going to start doing more with, that a lot of market gardeners do mesclun mixes. You can plant them once, they'll regrow and still have good flavor and grow quickly, and you get a lot of variety.
What is a mesclun mix?
So my understanding is that it's originally a French market garden strategy.
Okay.
So it comes from French market gardens, though you'll see like Baker Creek has a European mesclun mix that we grow. But it is a variety of different upright, leafy type greens. They can be cooking greens or raw eating greens. But you're able to plant them and harvest 2 to 3 times throughout the season.
Okay.
So market gardeners love them for that reason. You can harvest small.
Okay.
And
then you can reharvest.
You can reharvest.
Yeah,
so
that's
so
handy.
that is a market garden strategy because of the size and scale of our household and what we do here. I'm starting to employ more and more market garden strategies.
Right.
And so that's a good one. But I'm also finding it's worth sharing with you guys because even on a small scale, a lot of those strategies are geared toward,
Efficiency and
productivity.
Sure,
And
yeah.
we have to balance that with land management, soil development. But there's plenty of people out there doing organic, market gardening that are nurturing the soil and taking care of their resources. So love the mesclun mixes. Cilantro is another one. We always try to have cilantro going. We love it, of course, in any of our Mexican dishes and tacos, but it's regularly in our salads.
I love it just in the green salads.
Yeah,
I think
it's
just adds
great.
Such a good
always
flavor.
sprinkling it in there.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty much
Did we cover it all?
We covered everything on our list. That's
Okay.
20. So carrots, beets, radishes, turnips, cauliflower, broccoli, peas, bush beans, cabbage, chard, kale, spinach, mustard, lettuce, mesclun mixes, cilantro, rutabaga, sorrel, arugula, bok choy.
All right.
Wow, that is a lot that you can do right now, depending on where you're at. Some of you, your list may be longer.
Yeah.
Put
Put those things in the comment section. If you have things that you're planting right now and that you can plant in your area, write down what your expected first frost date is and what you're planting or what you plan on planting the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Because there's other people watching who are in your zone, your frost expected dates.
Absolutely.
And that can help them out. So
Yep.
jump in with your crops on that.
And so it kind of ended up for us targeting mid-October frost date. Some of the things we're doing, we're actually not doing all that we could just because we're in first year mode.
Right.
We're still developing beds and systems.
Hey, you know what we didn't put on there? Garlic.
Absolutely.
We didn't put garlic
Yeah.
on our list.
Yep, garlic.
for next
that,
year,
That, well,
but-
that goes in October, and of course
Yeah.
that's not seed.
No.
But yeah, that'll be going in late September, October.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, carrots, beets, radishes, chard, kale, spinach, cilantro, some of the mesclun mixes, which will have arugula, bok choy. Those will all be going in here in the next week, and even
Right.
several more weeks for our succession beds.
Yeah.
For our microgreen stuff that we're not trying to get up to size.
Good.
And actually, we have a greenhouse, which is really cool, and so we'll actually be even planting first week of September, first, second week of September. Some of that I know is going to
We'll
do well.
just-
Some of it'll be an experiment, but
Yeah.
that is for pushing that harvest even for us into December.
All right,
And,
that's
uh,
exciting.
That is exciting. That's a new one that we get to do. Okay, well, guys, I hope that helps you. Hope that gives you some good ideas, and keep planting seeds. Keep
Yeah.
nurturing your soil and keep planting seeds and experimenting and learning what you can do to extend and grow your harvest. Okay?
Absolutely. It is not too late to put in a bed, even if you're not planting yet, even if you haven't started a garden. Don't let that stop you. It's not too late to just put in a few lettuce plants to get a little experience.
And don't be afraid of failure.
Yeah.
Failure is what's going to show you where your boundaries are.
Yeah.
And what works and what doesn't work. Don't put it off because somebody tells you you can't.
Yeah.
You got to try things out on your site, sometimes different places on your site. So part of the journey is experimenting and just having fun with it. Seeds are not that expensive.
They're a cheap experiment.
They really are a cheap
Yeah.
experiment. And so if you're not sure, try it.
Yeah.
Don't let somebody tell you you can't do it. Try it and see.
I want to add one tip here. I know we're going to go a little bit over time, but I want to bring out one special challenge that exists with planting this time of year versus planting in the spring.
Okay.
And that's keeping your seeds watered.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because
You do need to make special provision for getting out there because it's hot. It's hot and dry in a lot of places of the country right now. You need to get out there and make sure your seed beds stay moist enough that your seeds can germinate.
And that's a challenge. You need a lot of these seeds need to be watered lightly multiple times. You can't take a heavy sprinkler, so you
Yeah.
need micro sprinklers or you need misters. So either get out there 2 to 3 times a day by hand with a wand, or if you've got some micro sprinkler system and timer, there's different strategies that you got to figure out what works for you. But that is a challenge.
Yeah.
And that's where some people don't have success because they don't understand, you've got to keep your soil moist in that germination period for a lot of these things.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
they're not planted as deeply and the top dries out quick.
Yeah.
So good point. Okay, so next week
Right.
we are talking canning. It is preservation season right now.
Yeah.
And usually we'd be talking here a little bit more about canning, fermenting, different things.
But honestly, I've been talking about it so much during the filming of my canning class
So you're going to have to check that out.
that, yeah, you're going to have to check that out. That's where I'm talking about it. But I'm going to start talking about it more here, just in public.
Yeah,
for
right.
that
You're going to
too,
have a little
so.
more availability for that now that you're
Yeah.
done with production. So next week, we're going to talk about canning, and I think you're going to specifically answer some questions or deal with, remind me.
We're going to be talking about the big no-nos. The things you
Canning,
shouldn't
big
do,
no-nos.
either where you get into trouble or where, major mistakes that people make in canning.
And I think that's probably going to address a lot of people's fears, right?
I think
There's
so,
a lot of
yeah.
fear out there about
Yeah.
canning that isn't necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's going to help people out, help you out
Absolutely.
a lot. So join us next week. Thanks for being here today. It's been really cool to hang out with you guys. Don't forget to leave us your questions, your topic ideas, your questions. We are going to be doing a once a month Q&A. That
Yes,
went
that's
really
right.
well. And so we can get more to to more questions than just the one every week.
Right.
So we'll do a longer session and get to as many questions as we can. So make sure and drop them in here.
Perfect.
That's a couple weeks out, but we'll get to that as well. And don't forget, please, to just share and like and so that we can continue to grow.
Absolutely.
And thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you guys.
We will see you soon. Goodbye.
Say goodbye.